All right, in this video, we're going over the final lesson of the unit, which is 3.5, determinants and inverses. So we're going to start with a determinant, and a determinant is a number, just a single number, and that we calculate using the elements of a matrix. And we use these determinants when we're solving systems of equations and also when we're finding the inverse of a matrix, which we will learn later in this video. So when we're writing determinant, it's a long word, don't really want to write it out. We use a symbol, and basically it looks like absolute value. It means nothing like absolute value. They just look the same. And so we would say, if we have a matrix A, the determinant would look like that, a bar with an A and another bar. Now, you can only find the determinant of a square matrix. So a square matrix is like a 2x2, 3x3, 4x4. It has the same number of rows and columns. Finding the determinant of a 2x2 matrix is super easy. 3x3 matrix is a little hard, a little more work, but not hard. As we start getting up to like a 4x4, I don't even know how to do that. I'd have to look it up. And honestly, 3x3, I forgot. But a 2x2 is easy, and that's all that you will have to do. So when we're finding the determinant, so I would say the determinant of A equals D. So those two elements, we're going to multiply those two elements, and then we're going to subtract B times C. So those two elements. AD minus BC. So we'll do some examples. So let's see, the determinant of A equals, we're going to start with the 5 and the 0. 5 times 0 minus, and then we're going to do those two, negative 1 times 3. 5 times 0 is 0. Negative 1 times 3 is negative 3. 0 minus negative 3 is 3. So the determinant of matrix A is 3. Now we're going to do the determinant of matrix B, so number 2. So we're going to start with those two. 7 times 2 minus, we're going to do 1 and 6. 1 times 6. 7 times 2 is 14, minus 1 times 6 is 6. 14 minus 6 is 8. Number 3, if you're getting the hang of this, feel free to fast forward a little bit past these examples, but I'm going to keep working. The determinant of C, we're going to start with negative 4 times 3 minus negative 1 times 11. Negative 4 times 3 is negative 12 minus negative 1 times 11 is negative 11. Negative 12 minus negative 11 is negative 1. Number 4, the determinant of D, we do 5 times 4 minus 8 times 3. 5 times 4 is 20 minus 24. And 20 minus 24 is negative 4. Now you can actually do this on the calculator, and after I was looking, I realized the calculator app that we've been using on our phones, that I also have on my iPad, for some reason does not have the button to do determinant, or if it does, it's in a different spot. So I'm going to show you how to do it, and you would have to use the calculator that's on your Chromebook. That one should have the buttons on it. So I'm just going to show you on here. So first thing you're going to do is we're going to get to the matrix menu, and notice matrix right there. I'm trying to highlight it if you see that. It's not an actual button. It's the words above the button. So that's why we have to hit the second button first. So we hit the second button, and then we hit this X to the -1. And that's going to pop up a menu. The menu does not look like this at all. And you're going to scroll over to the math. So there's a scroll over, hit this arrow over button, scroll over to math. And I think it's number 1. It should say DET. And you're going to hit that. And it's going to say determinant, and then you're going to type in your matrix. So if you remember to type in a matrix, you hit, let me erase, to type in a matrix, you type in alpha zoom, and then make sure you choose this one as a 3x3. And you would type in all of your numbers. And since I don't have the calculator, I can't do it. So if you type those in, you should get a single number as your answer. And if you email me with this answer, I will give you bonus points. All right, moving on to inverse. So the inverse is similar to what's called the reciprocal. I don't even know how to spell that. Hold on. Reciprocal. RECIPROCAL. All right. It's similar to the reciprocal of a number. And so if we think about reciprocals, what is a reciprocal? Well, if we have the number 2, the reciprocal of 2 would be 1/2. If we have the number 1/7, the reciprocal would be 7. They're numbers so that if you multiply them, you get 1. That's what a reciprocal is. And so that's similar to what an inverse. An inverse does the same thing, sort of. So if we have matrix A, the inverse, we have a -1 exponent. -1 exponent. And if we multiply a number, just like I showed you, if we multiply a number by its reciprocal, you get 1. But if you multiply a matrix by its inverse, similar to a reciprocal, you get the identity matrix. And it looks like this. So it's got zeros and ones in it. The ones, if you had a 3x3, they go down that diagonal. That's an identity matrix. All right. If we find the discriminant of a number and we say the discriminant is 0, then that means that the inverse does not exist. So if, in order for an inverse to exist, the discriminant, not discriminant, I do that all the time. It's determinant. Literally do that all the time. They don't mean anything alike. The determinant. All right. So I'm going to show you how to find the inverse. And it's not hard, but it's just a few more steps. So we would say that the inverse of A equals we have to know the determinant in order to find the inverse. So we have to do 1 over the determinant, and then we multiply that by the matrix. Now I'm taking these elements, and I'm moving them around. So the A and the D switch places. So these two elements switch places. The other two, they stay in their same place, but they switch signs. So that would become negative B and negative C. So we'll do some examples. And let's make a note here that this is the determinant. So first thing I have to do is find the determinant of A. 5 times 1 minus 3 times 1. 5 times 1 is 5, minus 3 is 2. So my determinant is 2. So I have 1 over 2. Now the 5 and the 1 switch places. The 3 and the 1 switch signs. And then we go ahead and we multiply each of those by 1/2. If it's a nice decimal, you can really do decimal or fraction. Just keep in mind that if it's multiple choice, you may see a fraction. So kind of, if it's a nice fraction, I normally just write it as a decimal. So like 1 times 1/2 is just 0.5. Or you could do negative 3 over 2. It doesn't really matter. We could do negative 1 over 2 or 2.5. It doesn't matter if you leave it as a fraction or a decimal. If it's an ugly decimal, like a really long one, then you probably need to just leave it as a fraction. And this is your answer. So if you were in your calculator, if you wanted to type those two matrices and you multiply them, so do that matrix A times this new matrix, you should get the identity matrix, that 1, 0, 0, 1 that I showed you above. All right, number 6. So when we're finding the inverse, we always start by doing the determinant. 0 times 2 is 0 minus negative 0.5. Okay. And then we take 1 over the determinant, so 1 over 0.5. Now, if you know what 1 over 0.5 is, then you know that that's actually 2. So 1 over 0.5 equals 2. If you don't know that, that's fine. You can type that in your calculator. But 1 divided by 1/2 is 2. Okay, then our A and D switch places, so the 2 and the 0 switch. This 1 becomes a positive, this becomes a negative. And now we're going to distribute that 2 across. 4, 2, negative 1, 0. And this is our final answer. Number 7. Actually, number 7 and 8, I want you to try them on your own. So pause the video and try those by yourself. First, we have to define the determinant of C. So we would do 20 minus 20. Oh, this was a tricky one. Equals 0. And if you remember, when the determinant is 0, the inverse does not exist. I forgot that one was there and you were supposed to be doing it by yourself. You probably got confused. But if the determinant is 0, and the reason is because you can't divide by 0. So when we try to do 1 divided by 0, it would be undefined. And that's why. All right, number 8. Start with the determinant of D. So negative 24 minus negative 27 equals 3. So we do 1 over 3. The 8 and the negative 3 switch places. The 9 becomes negative, and that negative 3 becomes a positive 3. And we're going to distribute that 1/3. I'm just going to leave that as a fraction. Negative 3, 1, negative 1. All right, those are super easy to do in the calculator. And all you have to do is first type in the matrix. Remember, it's alpha zoom. And then you raise it to the negative 1 power. So you're just going to put a negative 1 exponent. So this 7 I can do in my calculator. So alpha zoom, I'm going to make sure I use a 2 by 2 matrix. I think it was 7, 4, 3, 2. I'm going to go outside of the matrix and hit my caret button, which takes me to the top, and put in negative 1. And it gives me the inverse. Now, if you don't like those decimals, it might... No, okay, it didn't. Sometimes, maybe on your other calculator, it will do this, but if you try to change it to a fraction, it might change it for you. But these were nice decimals anyway. So it's 1... negative 2, negative 1.5, and 3.5. And that is it for this video, and that's the end of the unit. So if you need help with